Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA Alevel Psychology 2022 Paper 1 Exemplar Answers for Social Influence, which you need to know for AQA Alevel Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. Question 1. Which factors affecting minority influence are illustrated by the following examples? For each example, write the correct factor in the space provided. 3 marks. Members of a religious group give up their Saturday mornings to distribute leaflets about the importance of worship. An environmental group acknowledges that recycling can be time-consuming while emphasizing its importance for the future of the planet. All of the members of the Flat Earth Society agree that the Earth is flat and not round. Members of a religious group give up their Saturday mornings to distribute leaflets about the importance of worship. Answer: commitment. An environmental group acknowledges that recycling can be time-consuming while emphasizing its importance for the future of the planet. Answer: flexibility. All of the members of the Flat Earth Society agree that the Earth is flat and not round. Answer: consistency. Question 2. Name one explanation of resistance to social influence. 1 mark. Social support. Question 3. A teacher was absent and left work for students to complete during the lesson. Some students in the class did not do the work their teacher had left for them. Use one possible explanation of resistance to social influence to explain why this happened. 4 marks. One possible explanation for why the students didn't complete the work is because the students had social support from each other. Social support is an external, situational, factor that suggests that defiance, resistance, disobedience, and nonconformity is more likely to occur in the presence of others who are resisting. Seeing others disobey and not conform gives observer confidence to do the same. In the context of obedience, having a disobedient role models can increase the likelihood that an individual will disobey, as this challenges the legitimacy of the authority figure. In the context of conformity, having an ally, someone else who supports their point of view, can increase the likelihood that an individual will not conform, as this breaks unanimity of group in conformity situations. Social support is associated with diffusion of responsibility, as the more people who disobey, the less severe the consequences are likely to be. The text states some students, which suggests more than one. This would have given other students to confidence to not complete the work and not listen to the teacher. Some students could have acted as a disobedient role for other students to follow and challenge the supply teacher's authority, legitimacy of the authority figure. Some students may have also acted as an ally where they agreed that they should not complete the work their teacher set. Question 4. Describe how situational variables have been found to affect obedience. Discuss what these situational variables tell us about why we obey. 16 marks. Situational variables affecting obedience are external factors that affect the likelihood that someone will obey orders. Proximity between the teacher and learner has been found to affect obedience, as well as the proximity between the authority figure and teacher. In Milgram's original study, the teacher and learner were in the adjoining rooms. The teacher could hear the learner but not see him. In the proximity variation, when the teacher and learner were in the same room and the teacher could see the distress the learner was going through due to the consequences of their actions, obedience rates declined to 40%. In the touch proximity variation, when the teacher was tasked with forcing the learner's hand onto a shock plate, obedience declined to 30%. In the remote instructions variation, When the experimenter left the room and gave orders over a telephone, only 20.5% of participants went all the way to 450 volts, and participants frequently pretended to give shocks or gave weaker ones when they were asked to. This suggests that the closer people are to observe the consequences of their actions, the lower the obedience rates, as more people resisted. When people are able to feel detached from the consequences of their actions, e.g., not being able to see them firsthand, obedience is higher. It could also suggest that the decreased proximity to the authority figure allowed participants to return to a more autonomous state, agentic state. The location and environment have been found to affect the amount of perceived legitimate authority the person giving orders has. In Milgram's original study, it was conducted at the prestigious Yale University, which added to the perceived legitimacy of the authority figure giving orders. Milgram recreated his obedience study in a run downtown office block in Connecticut and found obedience rates fell from 60.5% to 47.5%, 17.5% decrease. This suggests that the change in location changed the participants' perceived legitimacy of the authority figure was lowered due to the location and its context, i.e., a rundown office block suggests the experimenter giving orders had less perceived authority than a researcher at a well-respected university. Uniforms can impact obedience rates, with those wearing them being perceived as having legitimate authority and people more likely to obey their orders. In Milgram's original study, the researcher wore a white lab coat, which is believed to have added to his perceived authority. In one variation, the experimenter was called away because of an inconvenient telephone call right at the start of the procedure. The role of the experimenter was taken over by an ordinary member of the public in everyday clothes rather than a lab coat. The obedience rate dropped to 20%, the lowest of these variations. This suggests that uniform does act as a strong visual authority symbol and a cue to behave in an obedient manner. A strength of situational variables is that there is research support. Bickman, 1974, conducted a field experiment in New York and found that when a research assistant dressed in normal civilian clothing ordered people to pick up rubbish, loan money to a complete stranger, or to move away from a bus stop, up to 19% of people obeyed. This decreased to 14% when the uniform was a milkman's uniform, possibly due to people believing he did not have the legitimate authority to make such an order. However, it increased to 38% when the assistant was dressed as a security guard. This is a strength because it suggests that uniform does affect obedience rates. A strength of Milgram's situational variables research is that it has high control of variables. Milgram systematically altered one variable at a time to test the effects of obedience. Other variables were kept constant, as the study replicated many times with over 1,000 participants. This is a strength because it suggests that Milgram's findings are reliable and valid, as Milgram was able to precisely identify the factor influencing obedience. A limitation of Milgram's situational variables research is that it suffers from gender bias. Milgram's sample consisted of only male participants. Females, for example, may be less or more likely to obey an authority figure. Females are often thought of as more caring and sympathetic in nature and therefore may not be as willing to harm another human being. This suggests the study ignores or minimizes the difference between men and women in relation to conformity to social roles. This is a limitation because it suggests that the result of the study cannot be generalized to other genders, e.g. women. However, Bushman, 1988, found that when female assistants dressed in a police-styled uniform asked people passing by to loan her money for a parking meter with obedience rates as high as 72%. This lowered to 48% when dressed as a businesswoman or 52% when dressed as a beggar, highlighting the power of uniforms in obedience. This is a strength because it suggests that Milgram's findings can be generalized to other genders. A limitation of Milgram's situational variable research is that it suffers from cultural bias. The sample only consists of American. America is an individualist culture, where people are generally less conforming, and the results may be different in collectivist cultures, Asian countries. This is limitation because it suggests that the results cannot be generalized to other cultures and countries. However, Miranda et al., 1981, found over 90% obedience in Spanish students. Further to this, Muse and Ragemakers, 1986, used a more realistic procedure than Milgram's to study obedience in Dutch participants. The participants were ordered to say stressful things in an interview to someone, a Confederate, desperate for a job. 90% of the participants obeyed. The researchers also replicated Milgram's findings concerning proximity. When the person giving the orders was present, obedience decreased dramatically. This is a strength because it suggests that the research can be generalized to other cultures and countries. However, Smith and Bond, 1998, noted that most replications have taken place in Western societies, e.g. Spain, culturally not that different from the USA, where they have similar beliefs about the role of authority. They identified that there were just 2 replications that took place in non-Western countries, India and Jordan, between 1968 and 1985. This is a limitation because it suggests that it is premature to conclude that Milgram's findings, including those about proximity, location, and uniform, apply to people in all or most cultures. Another limitation of Milgram's situational variables research is that it lacks internal validity. Orn and Holland, 1968, suggest participants in Milgram's variations were even more likely to realize the procedure was fake because of the extra experimental manipulation. In the variation where a member of the public replaced the experimenter, even Milgram recognized this was so contrived that some participants may have worked it out. This is a limitation because it suggests that it is unclear whether the results of Milgram's study are due to obedience or because the participants saw the deception and play acted, i.e. in response to demand characteristics. A final limitation of Milgram's situational variables research is that it had dangerous research implications. David Mandel, 1998, argued that Milgram's findings provide an excuse or alibi for evil behavior. In his view, it is offensive to survivors of the Holocaust to suggest that the Nazis were simply obeying orders. Milgram's explanation also ignores the role of dispositional factors, such as personality, implying that the Nazis were victims of situational factors beyond their control. This is a limitation because it suggests that Milgram's study oversimplifies the complex nature of evil behavior, particularly in historical contexts like the Holocaust, where personal responsibility and individual traits may play a crucial role in understanding such atrocities. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.